Thank you for agreeing to speak to us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Cllr Kath Pinnock and I'm the leader of the Liberal Democrats on Kirklees Council, and I've been a councillor in Cleckheaton for a number of years.
How do you feel about your prospects in retaining your Cleckheaton seat?
Oh, I should wait for the verdict of the electors on May the 3rd.
What do you think of the candidates you're up against? Dan Howard for Labour and David Pinder for the Conservatives.
I think that's up to the electorate to decide that. I fight my campaign and they fight theirs, and then the electorate judge, not me.
Do you not hold any views on them?
The only view I do hold is that neither of them live anywhere near Cleckheaton. I think that's a terrible shame. The Conservative candidate lives in Mirfield, which is nearer Huddersfield than it is Cleckheaton, and the Labour candidate lives in the Bradford Council District. So, as far as I'm concerned, that means that they don't know Cleckheaton, live in the heart of Cleckheaton, know the people, as obviously I do.
How do you think the Lib Dems will fare in Kirklees?
I think we've run a really strong campaign this year, and the evidence that we have from talking to, thousands of people, is that they are supporting what we are saying, what we are doing on behalf of the people we represent.
And nationally?
I'm going to ask a slightly different question to that, because it seems to me that none of the major parties are what I would describe as flavour of the month. I think the result in Bradford West by-election showed us that a lot of people are dissatisfied with what the three main parties are offering at a national level. And I think that is making people think twice again about who they should vote for. And in many ways that's a good thing, because if people are thinking about why they vote and who they should support, I think that gives the Lib Dems a great opportunity.
You alluded there to the Bradford by-election. Are you surprised that the Respect Party haven't fielded any candidates, especially in the mainly South Asian populated areas, especially here in Kirklees?
Yeah, I was surprised, particularly as George Galloway stated publicly that they were looking to find candidates to fight the elections in Dewsbury. Nothing has materialised.
Why do you think that's the case?
I should ask George Galloway that.
Do you think the party's unpopularity on a national level will adversely affect you on a local level like it did last year?
No, I think this last year's campaign was much more of a national voting pattern rather than it will be this year. This year, the themes in the election are all local, and so I think we will have a very different outcome than the one we did last year.
So you don't think the Lib Dem name has become toxic?
No. I think all parties go through difficult times, especially if you stand up for what you think's right.
One of the key issues for many voters will be cuts. The council leader said that there was pain in this budget, passed in February. How can you expect someone to vote for you when a Lib Dem-backed administration has committed to these cuts?
In the budget, both the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrat groups abstained from the vote on the budget. We allowed Labour to make the decision, having made some changes to it.
Surely by abstaining you are in a way complicit in this budget.
I don't think anybody should deny that the council has to make some really hard decisions. I think the whole country knows that we couldn't go on the way we were, partly because of what the Labour government left, not entirely their fault, but partly to do with them, but also because of the way the bank were basically casino banking with our money.
Labour have an excuse in that they say these cuts were imposed on them by the Liberals, who are cutting at national levels. What do you say to Labour? I mean, do you think that there's any other way of finding efficiency savings?
All I would do is repeat what Ed Miliband and Ed Balls have said last November, which is they have accepted that they would have to make exactly the same level of cuts.
So you totally agree with these cuts being implemented by central government?
No, look, nobody's going to agree with those cuts because they're awful, aren't they? Well, all we have to do is look around Europe and say to ourselves, do we want to be in the position that Italy, Spain...
Let's talk about unemployment in Kirklees. What is Kirklees Council doing to get people into jobs, especially young people?
It's very tough. I mean, the unemployment levels for young people are unacceptable. And I've raised that a number of times in council about what we could do. And one of the things we can and are doing now is increasing the number of apprenticeships.
Do you think there is a disconnect between North and South Kirklees?
Depends what you mean by a disconnect. Kirklees is a what was left over in West Yorkshire after they carved out Leeds, Bradford, Wakefield and Calderdale. And the bit that was left was called Kirklees. So there's never been anything that's pulled it together except having to be together. But having said that, it's existed for 40 years, and any changes to it now, such as the Conservatives are proposing, fail on two grounds really. One is the cost. The Director of Resources has estimated it would cost £40 million to split Kirklees. And secondly, the Conservative government have said, in an answer to a question in the House of Commons, we will not split Kirklees.
You mentioned that Kirklees was basically the leftovers. So why not just do away with Kirklees councils as the Tories have proposed and bring back some sort of connection for the people of Kirklees?
Because I don't think it does that. Because if we read what the Tories are actually proposing, they're talking about split Kirklees north and south, and then the bit they don't tell you, but it's on their website, is merge it with Calderdale. So actually what we have is this mega council stretching from Todmorden in over there somewhere, nearly in Lancashire, to Denbydale, Dewsbury South, over this end. That is vast.
Okay. Let's move on to the LDF proposals. Would you say the LDF proposals are a necessary evil? Because a lot of people are really angry and have been angered by them.
Some people are very angry about them. And the people who are very angry about them fall into two groups. Those who see the green fields next to them being allocated for development. And I totally understand that. And then the other group, a smaller group, who in principle don't want any development on anything anywhere. Now, if you look at, for instance, Dewsbury, which has been what I have said all along, there are people in Dewsbury who are living in situations that are overcrowded. Now, personally, I think as a council, we need to do something about it. And the only way we can do something about it is by allocating some green land for more houses. And I'm unashamed in saying that that's what we did. The Liberal Democrats actually wanted more new houses in Dewsbury to help relieve this terrible position that some families are living in. The other thing that we as Liberal Democrats said was that Bradford Road, Batley Dewsbury corridor of a lot of old industrial buildings that are and land that is underused should be have council or government investment in, so it can be regenerated as more business opportunities on that corridor, to bring more jobs for local people and more investment into Dewsbury.
Let's move on to another aspect of the LDF proposals, which you touched on, is the industrial properties to be built. Chidswell in particular. You mentioned that you'd also like to see the brownfield sites developed.
Uh-huh.
But why not develop them first and then build on greenbelt land in Chidswell?
Of the brownfield sites, I know we were the only, Liberal Democrats were the only party that went through every single piece of land in Kirklees on a map, looked at it and worked out what we thought was how it could be used. And what we've done is, in our proposals, half the brownfield sites are allocated for housing, and half the brownfield sites are allocated for new businesses. And in the for housing, that we said it has to come in that order. Brownfield sites first, then a lot of technical stuff, brownfield schla, and then greenfield, and then the green belt. So that's the order for housing. So we're doing exactly what you said. For jobs, it's more difficult because whereas housing, developers can make money on building houses. It's much more difficult for businesses to make money when they've got a huge investment in the building and equipment before they even start making any profit out of the business that they start.
So is this a case of the council buying to pressure from businesses?
No, I hope it is. It's under pressure for our aspirations and ambitions for local people. I mean, we can either end up with lots of people in our communities not having any jobs to go to, or having to travel long distances for jobs when petrol prices are soaring, or we can try and provide them close to home.
Do you think that this greenbelt land issue will lead to the Lib Dems suffering in Kirklees? Because there seems to be a lot of anger, especially with the Chidswell campaign.
No, because what is not accepted, I mean, the Tories just go for sort of a glib headline. Under the Tory proposals, there would be no greenbelt land built on. I accept that totally. But every greenfield space that you look around, in my ward and every ward, will be built on by houses, because what they've done is put all the business onto brownfield sites. So that's where it can go, so we don't have to use any green belt. If you remember, I said half the brownfield land under our plan was for houses. If you use it all for business, you can't use it for houses. And the only place then for housing is on the green land that's not green belt. And I know there are 8,338 houses that the Tories will have to build on green fields next to nearly every community in Kirklees.
Healthcare is another great concern to many people. Locals are having to travel long distances to places like Pinderfields. What assurances can you give to people worried about healthcare in the area?
The only assurance I can give is that I will fight to the death to protect Dewsbury Hospital. The big disaster was when Dewsbury was put with Pontefract and Pinderfields. Pinderfields had a huge debt at the time. Dewsbury had no debt, and has been shouldering part of Pinderfield's debt ever since. And in my view, if we could split that hospital trust, take Dewsbury out of it, and perhaps put it with Huddersfield and Halifax, we would be far, far better off as communities if we did that. Because as you rightly said, at the moment, people are given appointments in Pontefract or Clayton West or Pinderfields, which are really difficult to get to, when what we need is services in Dewsbury with easy access.
Thank you for speaking to us, Councillor, and best of luck.
All right, thanks very much.
No problem.